Hey everybody, Dave Costello here, founder and CEO of Jetpack Workflow and host of Growing Firm Podcast. Today's guest is Ean Price Murphy. She's the owner of Moxie Bookkeeping and is a business coach for the Certified Profit First professional organization. And this interview is going to be a little bit different. We're doing a series where we focus on what it is like to manage a team and what a typical week looks like and the questions and reports or meetings that owners have as they're managing a team. And we hope that for you, the listener, the first-time manager, maybe second-time manager, this can help you grow and manage your team. But all that to say, Ean, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Well, if people are not familiar with Moxie Bookkeeping, what do you do? Who do you do it for? And roughly what is the size of the team before we dig into your management cadences?
Yep. So we are New York City based, but we have a virtual team. Only about half of our team is based in New York area, and even so, they all work virtually. We primarily service creative service-based businesses, so designers and architects and photographers. We have we've been around for 1 million years, so we have someone in almost every industry there is. But generally, for things like manufacturing, e-commerce, we prefer that people stick with someone who's specialized, just because there's some extra juice you can get out of somebody if that's really their niche.
Got it. And roughly what is the team size?
Oh yeah, we are 10 of us right now.
Awesome.
I'm
10
number
people.
10, yeah.
I remember 10 at Jetpack because it felt like, I'm not saying it felt like this for you, people have different inflection points, but when we reached 10, everything felt harder. like communication felt harder and team management felt harder. So anyways, when you said 10, that just sparked that memory for us. But
Yeah.
At 10 people, by the way, what's the organizational chart of 10 people? Is everybody reporting up to you, or how does that work?
No, thankfully, I have a business manager, Tracy, who I call her my brain. I actually hired her remotely. She was moving to New York City from Mississippi, and I spoke to her on the phone and loved her, and she had the right background. And so I was like, well, we need an office manager, come on up, we'll give it a try. And she just proved her worth immediately. So I made her a partner in the business, and she's actually sort of the functional manager to make sure that things get done, so that I can really stick to focusing on, vision and marketing and conversations and connections. So that's really nice. And she also has an assistant, Britta, who helps her because the workload's gotten to that.
Awesome. Okay, so Tracy reports up to you. She has an assistant, Britta, and then does
Yep.
everybody else report to Tracy?
And then almost everybody else, I don't know if this is more true of female-owned businesses, but I feel like we have a very collaborative team approach. So we do have a senior level bookkeeper, Sandy, who was actually my college roommate and owned her own business for a while. And when her restaurant eventually lost its lease, I was like, you got to come work for me. So she's been with me for years, and we've known each other for years before that. So she's really the sort of technical go-to. She's what I call the client manager. So she's who a lot of the bookkeepers go to first if they have questions about, I don't understand how to work around this issue that I'm finding in QuickBooks or in Xero, or I'm not sure how to explain it well to the client. So, she's on level with Tracy, and they kind of talk to each other. They sort of report to each other as much as me, because again, I like to just be bothered with the stuff that I need to focus on. And then the bookkeepers come to Tracy for all of the admin billing questions, and to Sandy for all of the technical bookkeeping question stuff.
Cool. Okay, amazing. And so to focus on Tracy a little bit, what you said, well, she really thinks about, or she really makes sure people are getting the things done. To zero in on Tracy's world a little bit, and the reason I'm doing this is because people might be listening and they might be like, I'm Tracy in this scenario, or they might be like, I want to hire Tracy, and as soon as possible. But I want to break down, what does a week look like for Tracy? Like, what reports or views is she looking at? How often is she communicating with the team? Are there huddles? Like, I don't know. Like, what's Tracy's week look like?
Yeah, so in terms of Tracy speaking to the bookkeepers, I think that's mostly as needed. Sometimes it's generated from the bookkeepers. A lot of times it's generated from her. She runs the payroll weekly, just so it's easier for us to keep on top of. So she's constantly checking um, you know, has your timesheet been entered? Was it entered correctly? Was it entered against the correct job? Is it on budget? You know, is there anything that she's seeing from sort of an administrative level of what needs to be managed? For instance, we just finished a cleanup project for a client, and Tracy was ready to bill, and I realized I never gave the client an estimate. Because, you know, you don't want me doing anything. I will always mess it up, which is why, again, why I love Tracy. And for anyone who does not have a Tracy, I'm guessing you are your own bottleneck. Like, get Tracy. She's amazing. Not my Tracy, or Tracy. So she came to me and was like, you know, we don't have a budget for this. And so that allowed me to then check in with the client and be like, hey, we're almost done with your cleanup. You know, I just wanted to give you an update, and this is what you're going to expect when you see your bill. And she was like, great, no problem. And then we sent her the bill, and it was actually a little bit under than what I had told her on purpose. So that rather than surprising the client with a bill where she's like, wait, what? Even though we agreed that we were going to do cleanup work, I was able to play that, you know, under promise, over deliver card, and just make the whole transaction feel good out of what was honestly my mistake.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's brilliant, right? So Tracy's trying to find, 'cause it seems like constantly find what are things that the clients are going to experience that's suboptimal or that's blocking us internally where we're not going to get it done. If you had to, I guess maybe guess is not the right word, but like, what do you think are like the top 5 or 10 reports she looks at? Like you mentioned, like timesheet reports is like a big one. Or is time being entered? How's it working against budgeted time on the
Yeah.
job? What are some other ones that are on her radar, you think?
The other really important metrics to us is billable versus non-billable client time, and administrative versus client work. So we need to know what our bookkeepers are doing. And then if we had to comp time for any reason, because, you know, if what I'm saying is it took you 30 minutes to figure out something that, you know, if you had more experience with this client should have, you know, taken 5, please only bill the client for 5. I'm going to pay you for the full 30, but that 25 should be non-billable client work, because we need to be tracking, like, again, where are the bottlenecks. But then we also need to know how much time are you spending on making sure that their information is updated, and making sure that we know, you know, who's going on maternity leave, and whose dad just died, or who just had a baby, or, you know, whatever those things are that are important life events, so that, again, we can reach out and stay in good communication with the client. And that is way too much to ask Tracy to do. You know, she really
Yeah.
relies heavily on the bookkeepers to say, by the way, you know, they had an office birthday party or whatever. And, you know, if we can get ahead of that and send a card or flowers, we love to do that.
Yeah. So would you say, and those the things you mentioned, is that something you think she looks at or you see her look at every week, like billable
Weekly.
versus non-billable,
Yeah,
uh,
weekly.
and then admin versus client?
Yeah.
Do you have a gauge on like how much time should be spent on client work versus admin, and if it ever goes over that, it's kind of like a red flag to dig into it?
Yeah, so the metrics that she passes up to me of, if, you know, because then again, I don't have to look at those reports all the time, because she just tells me what the outliers are, is if
Yeah.
anyone, if any of our bookkeepers is doing more than 20% not billable work,
Yeah.
that's too much. And if they're doing more than 10% admin, that's, you know, probably too much. Or we just need to know why. Sometimes it was, hey, I had to go in and, you know, set up a new job, and the office started it, but once I got into it with the client, I needed to really streamline the task list. That's not client work, that's our work. So I, you know, I'd be like, right, that makes sense that you're billing some extra admin time, and thank you for doing that.
Right. Okay. So you look at 20%. If it exceeds 20% non-billable, why? And then 10%, if it more than 10% admin, why? When you see that come up, is it usually you or Tracy that would sit down with them and be like, or would it be an email? Would it be a text? Would it be a phone call? Like, how do you kind of then take the next step to uncover what's going on?
Yeah, we still use email primarily. You know, we sort of looked at Slack, but it just seemed like yet another system, and I try to
Right.
keep things as slim as possible. So if it's a question on their timesheets, we'll still just email. And by we, I mean Tracy.
Okay. So Royal,
I
well, in
use
that case,
Royal We a
there's,
lot.
yeah,
Usually it's Tracy. So yeah, so she'll sort of check in with them. Sometimes she'll copy me on it, you know, or if they give back an answer that doesn't answer the question, sometimes she'll loop me in, or if, you know, if it's a bookkeeper that is chronic about it, she'll start to loop me in. You know, our sort of management rule of thumb, which is true for the bookkeepers as well, is don't do anything more than twice if you're not getting the result that you want. So if I've emailed you something twice and I'm not hearing the response, I need to call you. If I've called you and left messages twice and I'm not getting a response, I need to text you. You know, if I've done all of that, then I need to loop somebody else in to, you know, to be like, how do I get a hold of this person? Because otherwise you just end up wasting time. And that's really, you know, I also have this thing where everyone says time is the most precious resource because it's non-renewable. And I go, yeah, but, or yes, and if you prefer, the time you have is only as valuable as your energy level. And so I actually think that my most precious resource is my energy, because if I can manage my energy, then I can make the best use of my time. But, you know, if I give myself 6 hours to do something and I'm exhausted, I might still get nothing done. So that's a long-winded way of saying, you know, why we have this sort of system in place. So to get back to what Tracy's doing and what I'm doing, and, you know, obviously everything that Tracy does, I used to do.
Right.
And I knew that I was the bottleneck and that I needed someone to help out in order for me to be able to focus on client relationships, client experience, and growth. So yeah, she looks at those metrics weekly. We follow up. Again, she only loops me in for stuff that she feels like she needs me to either be aware of or take action on. And then for things that are sort of project related, we'll just @tag each other within the Jetpack softwares, you know, to sort of be like, hey, did they, you know, I see that you requested this. Did you hear anything? I don't see anything here. Or why are they still on hold? Do you need me to step in?
Got it. I do have a, well, you mentioned Jetpack workflow. So you mentioned you want as few tools as possible. So what is your kind of core technology stack before I ask a couple more questions about Tracy and management views and things like that?
Yeah, so Google, you know, Google is our world. And I'm so thankful that they provide so many tools at, you know, at so low or no cost to us, that I just think that without Google, I don't know that my business would have been nearly as successful as it has been, because I would have just been crippled by software costs early on. We do all of our bookkeeping in Xero or QuickBooks. You know, we have Profit First on top of that, but we manage that in all of the same ways, since it's really just interpreting the data and helping business owners use that data to make smart decisions. We use Jetpack for our task and project management. I know that we have a CRM system. I don't know exactly what, I think it's ActiveCampaign.
It's
I
something.
know
That is one. That is one
that
of
is
them.
one of them.
Yeah.
I know that Tracy uses Zapier. What else do we have in there? Nothing that I can think of off the top of my head.
Okay.
Yeah.
Couple more follow-ups on Tracy. So, well, also you said, you know, everything that she's doing, you used to do. At what point do you think it's appropriate for a firm to hire a Tracy, right? Is it 3 team members, 5, 6? What's a rough guidance on, like, you're probably going to start feeling it around this amount?
That is a great question. I don't remember our dollar value when we hired Tracy. It was about 5 years ago. We were definitely over 500,000 in revenue. You know, I mean, the short answer is, before you can get Tracy as a business manager, you know, what was not available when I started my business was a virtual assistant. That if I could have handed over some, you know, Acuity, obvious, you know, if I could have handed over the scheduling, all these things that we automate now, like, that would have been so fantastic. And people who are starting businesses now or running businesses now have such a leg up on, you know, just the total lack of cloud-based technology from 15 years ago. So yeah, I mean, you know, what I first hired her to help me with was the billing, because the billing has always been something that no matter how we try to automate it, no matter how many systems we tie together, we still need to look at each and every invoice and make sure that we like it. And again, we've gotten around about 50% of that. We have about half of our clients on monthly flat rate automatic billing. But we still get one-off projects and consulting projects and all of these sort of littler things that need to be billed individually. And it still takes, I would still say it still takes a full 2 days for us to get billing out the door. And again, if I was trying to do that, I would be driving myself crazy. So, you know, at first it was just like, I need you to prep these so that I can look over them before they go out to the clients. And eventually I was like, you know what you're doing, just send them.
And that was at roughly, you said roughly 500,000, and that,
I think it was a half a million.
probably what, 3 to 6 team members?
Yeah, probably 5 or 6. I feel like every time we get close to 10 team members, and you already said, you know, that's definitely sort of a cliff, that what I find is I improve the quality of what we've got rather than the quantity. That rather than adding another person in, I look at the list and I go, do I really want to be dealing with all 10 of these people every single day? And almost always there's one person that I'm like, you know, for the last 2 years, they've been doing okay. They've been doing just fine. But there's always something left to be desired. You know, either they're giving their client a great experience, but really not doing the admin work, you know, and then I just think, well, you really want to be a freelancer. You don't want to be an employee. So go be a freelancer again, you know, and that's
I
never
see.
an out of the blue conversation. You know, there's always several steps of like, why are you not following protocol and what do we need to do? And, you know, expectations are always made very clear. There's always a lot of feedback. But if after a few years, what I'm seeing is you are not complying to my vision the way that I would like you to, I don't see you as valuable to my team as you could be. Like, I just feel like I'm more motivated about you than you are about me. And I don't like that. And so that's sort of what the process is. Every year we look at, you know, the bottom rung of our clients. Who do we cringe when they call us? You know, who have we kept on long past our ability to serve them well? You know, who is super sweet, but just so disorganized that we're always behind. And, you know, I could put up with anything for about 2 years. It's real hard to get me to put up with anything for 3. So every year we just do this evaluation of clients and staff and just say, you know what, I don't think we're the best fit. We're trying to go here and you're kind of like content way back here.
I love the concept of like the cringe test for your team and for your clients.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
If you're not excited to get an email from your team member, you might want to start reflecting why that's the case.
Yeah. Because that's why I'm in business, you
Yeah.
know, because I want to work with and for the people that I like and who I think are doing cool things and who I think are, you know, making a positive impact. And so if you've got a crappy attitude, that really pulls the winds out of my sails, you know?
Yeah, and I do think firm owners often forget that they are the creators of their universe here, right? If it's like, if you don't like your business, good and bad news. Good news is you created it, you could fix it. The bad news is you created it, now you got to deal with it. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And oftentimes that takes someone like an outsider business coach that's focused on that aspect. You know, I mean, here goes another tangent. One of the things about business coaches is we're like doctors, right? Like, oh, I'm a doctor, but like, right, okay, so a doctor of philosophy or an ear, nose, throat person. Like, doctor could mean a million things. So same thing with business coach. Like, you know, I'm a business coach, but I really only am good at the money stuff. I'm not great at telling you, you know, like, I know marketing because I've had to do it, but that doesn't mean that I excel at it or would ever sell myself as the right person to work on you with your marketing plan. I know coaches that are, and I'm happy to refer you. So, you know, getting an outside coach, make sure that they're working well in the area that you need help with, you know. So if it's turning your mindset into how do I lead my team better, making sure that you have someone that not only is good at organizational structure, but at that like leadership development piece.
Yeah, absolutely. To round out, I have a couple, maybe 1 or 2 questions about Tracy. So you said you have this weekly view of billable versus non-billable, admin versus client. Are there other views that she would look at in a week, or you used to look at in a week or daily? Like, is there something she would look at Wednesday or Monday, or is it really that that is the main report, or that's almost the only report she looks at.
That's the main report. I mean, obviously we track our cash very carefully, so we also look at cash in, cash out. Um, we use the profit first system, so we do our own allocations to make sure that we have tax savings and profit savings. And um, this current global pandemic situation has been the best marketing that I could have asked for, which sounds terrible, but what I mean by that is, I was already really good at the numbers. So I didn't come to Profit First needing a system. I came to Profit First because a lot of my clients are creatives. And even the ones that are good at numbers, they know that that's not where they should be spending the majority of their time and focus. And so either the people we work with, you say numbers and they get this nauseous look on their face, or they're like, please don't, like me and Tracy, please don't bother me with the stuff that I don't, just tell me what I need to know. So I had sort of thought of it as this really beautiful system that allows business owners to just glance at their bank balance and know exactly what's happening, because we're all looking at our bank balance all the time anyways. So like, why not make that useful? But then when I implemented it in my business, what I realized was it gave me a natural budget. So it prevented me from saying, well, I could take this as a bonus, but I also could purchase this really new, cool learning. Let me go do David Miller's story brand. Like, yeah, for sure, but maybe save for it first. So I was able to double my take-home pay because I just gave every dollar a job, gave every dollar home, and stopped using things how I wanted to because we had money. So I was already like really in love with this system above and beyond. And then, everything kind of fell apart, and I and my Profit First clients and the other Profit First clients that I know working with other professionals were some of the few businesses that were able to like take a breath, look around, be like, I know I have a cash runway. I know I'm good for 3 months. Like, I don't want to blow through that in the next 3 months, but it gave all of us this room to breathe so that we could take a breath, assess what's happening, and then pivot to respond well to what was actually happening rather than freaking out because income stopped. And again, fortunately, being a bookkeeper, what I remember from 2001 and 2008 was people actually turned towards their financial people instead of away from them in the beginning of a crisis. So we also have the added luxury of not having to deal directly with that. Obviously some of our clients are making no dollars right now and no dollars in the foreseeable future. But it allows me to fully show up to support them rather than freaking out about what am I doing? How's my business going to survive this?
That's a good point. And I think the firms, and I would say this, a couple of times, it's like the firms that lean in and, there's some firms, and we've seen them out in the market where they'll kind of like send over a, hey, here's a PDF you should think about. Here's some random SBA resource. Here's a 20-page PDF. Here's go read it and, have fun. Right. And then there's the others that really become an advisor. And I think the industry's been talking about, oh, you need to become an advisor. You need to become an advisor. Well, this is the easiest time to become an advisor. And that simply means give them a call and say, hey, this is what I think you should do. Or, hey, here are the opportunities for you, whether it's Profit First or here's financing things I'm seeing or whatever. Call them up. Don't overthink it.
And hey, how are you doing?
Or, hey, how are you doing? Just want to give you a ring and see how things are going. Yeah. So please, if you're listening, lean into that. Ian, this has been great. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of follow-up questions from our listeners. If somebody wants to reach out, connect, learn more about you, what is the best place for them to do so?
Yep. If you're on Facebook, we're on Facebook. Our page is not super active, but I do have a group, Profit First for Creatives, if anyone is interested in that. We have a blog. If you go to our website, www.moxiebookkeeping.com, you can sign up to get notification of the weekly webinars that I do on Wednesdays. We only send out info about once a month. We're also on Instagram and LinkedIn. We're everywhere, the usual.
The usual. Cool. And if you're listening and you couldn't jot down everything, you're running around, skipping around, hopping around, maybe we're living in a world where you're listening to this, you can actually go outside without fear, 2022, I don't know, whatever it's going to be. And you couldn't write down everything. Well, if you go to jetpackworkflow.com/blog, that's jetpackworkflow.com/blog. We're going to do a full write-up of the interview. We're going to link up everything. We're going to link up the LinkedIn and the Facebook group and the website, Profit First Professionals, everything that you mentioned at jetpackworkflow.com/blog. And if you're listening, you enjoyed this interview, or watching, you enjoyed this interview, leave a review, help us get the word out about the content like this. And if you really loved it, share it with a fellow firm owner that needs to hear this stuff. Ian, thanks again for coming on.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.